working on anti-extremism for a long time. We've got I'll just go how they're arranged on the screen in front of me. Lucian Hudson, a very distinguished many things, including a very distinguished career at the BBC before joining the government, where he was the BBC and ITV, if I'm not mistaken, before becoming the UK government's first webmaster general, the director of e-communications for the UK government. Lucian has been the director of communications at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and has introduced tweeting and blogging to the Foreign Office as well many years ago. We've got also Paul Tweed, the international media lawyer who's represented royalty, celebrities, politicians, and has been battling social media giants out of the non-American headquarters in Dublin. He's currently in Belfast. He practices out of Belfast, London, and Dublin, and is probably one of the world's leading lawyers on social media. Also got Konstantin Schreiber, one of Germany's most prominent broadcast journalists, currently with one of the main broadcasters there. He's written a number of best-selling books on extremism, on incitement. He's lived many years in the Middle East. His last book was called Inside Islam, where he looked at preaching inside mosques in Germany. That was a bestseller for, I think, almost a year. Yes. And is currently, I think, doing a phase 2 of this this project. I hope I haven't broken any secrets. So let me start by going to Senator Goulet. Senator Goulet, you've written an article in Le Figaro last week after Facebook appointed an oversight board to basically adjudicate posts and basically an oversighting. You were very critical, or rather critical, of the way that the board's makeup was. Could you perhaps, just say something about your concerns? Why did you, the concerns that you've raised in the article, and what you think should be? No. I mean, that's very clear. You've mentioned obviously the member of the Muslim Brotherhood who's joined the Facebook oversight. Yes. That presumably is Tawakkul Karman, who's been photographed with Yusuf Qaradawi, who's banned from entering the UK and France. Absolutely agree. I mean, she's a very divisive figure. That's the whole point about having an oversight board. You can have your political opinion. We're not talking about freedom of speech. We're talking about being neutral, and she's clearly not. Absolutely, thanks. If I may go to Germany, to Konstantin Schreiber, you've been looking at incitement outside the mosque. Inside the mosques. Inside the mosque. But now with COVID, I mean, Germany has not been really under lockdown to the degree that we've been in the UK and France, perhaps. But is incitement via social media like Facebook, has it been a problem in Germany, or is it more of a secondary challenge? Typical Muslim Brotherhood teachings, basically. Yeah, okay, thanks. And whilst you were talking, we were very luckily very happy to be joined by the Honourable Ian Paisley MP, who is in Northern Ireland. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Paisley has been at the forefront again of speaking against extremism. The last time we've met face to face was an event you've sponsored in Parliament for the for the Daniel and Amelia Lindsay Foundation victims of terrorism, the Sri Lanka attacks. That was just before the lockdown, and it is something that you've been talking about for long, particularly the banning of the Muslim Brotherhood. What has happened since you've spoken is that Facebook has in fact, appointed a member of the Muslim Brotherhood to their oversight board. I just wonder what your thoughts on this are. Absolutely. No, thanks very much. Before I go to Mr. Hudson, who would sort of wrap up the political, the legal stuff, I'll go to Paul Tweed, who has been dealing with the legalities and the challenges of social media. A year ago, the New York Times had a major piece about Mr. Tweed's argument that Facebook is no longer an impartial platform, but rather should be treated like any other publication. So I'll give the floor to Paul. Perhaps you could take over. Well, thanks very much, Paul. Talking of governments, before I sort of open for further comments, I'll go to Lucian Hudson. Mr. Hudson's been really a pioneer in using social media. He opened the first person to bring tweeting to the UK government as the first webmaster general for the UK government. Lucian, when you started with social media, was that something that, what the challenges that we've just heard from the political, legal, and extremism, was it something that worried you? And 10 or 15 years later, how do you see the landscape? And what are your thoughts about where we've reached from where we were when you really started this? Thanks very much. I'll go to Natalie. You've raised your hand. You wanted to comment on something. Before we conclude, would anyone else like to add anything to this? Lucian, of course. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming and spending this hour on it's a bank holiday for some of us, and hopefully we'll be able to meet in person soon. And I'll circulate an email so we can continue the discussion. Thank you very much all.